Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Today on Collection Lessons, I want to talk about best business ratio. This is part of my Collection Lessons series. Anything I say in this channel is not anything advice, and let's get going. So when I talk about best business ratio, I'm talking about what are your expenses to what are you making? What is it costing you versus what are you making? What are you risking? And this is where I like the risk to reward. What are you risking to make something? And this is where this could get into trading. This could get into business, as well as let's look at some business models really quick and see how they're doing and see where they go. So when I talk about business ratio, I'm talking about and people call it, well, now call it too, risk to reward. So risk : reward. That means if you're risking $1, you are making $2, right? So the risk and the reward have to be different, or else you're going to have some problems. If you're, spending $1 to make $1, what's the point? There is no business there. That business is just, there's no cash flow. If you're spending $1 to make $1.20, there's a period here. That means you're making 20 cents. Okay, and I'm gonna go through these ratios, and I'll go through some examples here. If you're risking $1 to make $2, you're making, for every $1 you put in, you're making 2. That's a good ratio. That's a start of a good ratio. How about 1 to 4? That's even better. And then I think anything greater than 4, such as like 5 and above, is so good that it's almost usually too good to be true or sustainable. That's usually what it is. So what I like, and the best business ratio that I have found from researching businesses and business models, I've looked at franchises, I've looked at hotels, I've looked at restaurants, I've looked at online businesses, I've looked at tons of different things to see what can I throw my money into and what's the best, sustainable ratio. And I've found that it's between 2 and 4. So keep that in mind, between 2 and 4. And where this kind of comes into play is the odds of business and the odds of investing and stuff are always against you. Kind of like the casino is always against you. The casino always has the odds in their favor. That's why you got to go off the risk to reward. Because alongside of, all of this going on, you also have the percent chance of it happening. What is the percent that this is going to happen? Well, if it's 50%, and this is where I'm getting into some math, that means 50% of the time, it won't work. You'll burn the dollar, you won't get anything. Then you do it again, and then you win, and it's okay, you spend $2 to get $2. It's not the greatest, right? So these two things come into play, and this is where, like, gambling or casinos, that type of thing, or online types of casinos, whatever, this is what they play off of. Nothing is ever in your favor more than 50%. Some aren't even to 50%. Some are 49, 48% in your favor. Usually the house has whatever. What are the chances of that happening? Well, when you get into certain things like restaurants and that, and this is where they say I think it's 99% of restaurants fail. And you're like, well, why do they fail? It's because they're only using this. Most restaurants are using this, especially local ones are using this ratio. That means it costs them, let's say, $10 to make your meal, and they charge you, $12. They're only making 20. And it's not great. 20% markup isn't great. Retail does this as well, such as clothing stores, retail stores like, not big ones right now. I'm thinking smaller, I don't know, furniture stores, or video game stores like Best Buy, for instance. They only make about 3%. This was about 99% of stores fail, and that's usually because they fail below. They're below the 1 to 2. They're below the 1 to 2. So something like Best Buy makes about 3% on a video game, I think it is. On video games. It's not much. Your local store, like I know there's some local stores where I live where you can trade in a video game and then you can get another video game. They make most of their profit on the trading, right? That's how that kind of works, because what they do is, and this was one example, I guess. So video game stores basically make 3%. If you can trade in a game, they'll usually give you about half of half. So let's say the game is $60, and so half is 30. They'll give you 15, and then they're going to try and sell it for 30. That's because they're trying to make it and flip it into the 2-to-1, or the 1-to-2 ratio. For every $1, they want to gain 2. And that's where it's like, that's where they make their money, right? It's like, oh, they're only making $15. Yeah, but on a $60 game, you know what 3% of a $60 game is? It's like less than $1.50. One flip like this is worth more than like 12 of these. And so that's where, you know, that's where they kind of increase their business ratio. And that's why, like, you'll see some restaurants and such, they'll say like new ownership, new management, new whatever. It's because the previous ones failed, and for some reason the next one's coming in and think they can do better. Generally they can't, and then they fail as well. And that's when change ownership always happens. Sure, you might have the same brand name or whatever, but the best ones are within the 2 to 4. And to give an example of the best ones is McDonald's. McDonald's does a 2 to 4 ratio. So let's say like a Big Mac or like a Big McDouble or whatever they're called these days. It's about $4 for a burger. We'll just call it a burger at whatever chain you want. That means that generally it costs them $1 to get the stuff to make the $4. This is why you'll see coupons with half off, and the business is still making money. That's how you know the business has a 1 to 4 or whatever, you know, in that 2 to 4 ratio, is because they can do half off and still make money. If you can do half off and still make money, you know, obviously you're doing something right. It's not a 2 at that point, if that makes sense. So somewhere that could offer that, if they offer it and go negative, that's a bad thing, right? I'm not talking about like, you know, the special deals that come out at the end of Christmas and whatever, and the end of the year. Basically, you want that. If you don't get that, you're not having a good time. So the way that like McDonald's, for example, has this is, you know, they have their own supply line. They have their own cows. They have their own, you know, beef farms, and they make these relationships to try and get this down, because you can only do this so many times in a row before it starts not making any, you know, not making it worth it. So like the best example that I've seen is water. So we'll go over here to water. Where does water come from? Well, it comes from the ground. It comes from the sky. It's basically free. This is where the chain starts, right? So then somebody either has rights to the land or the lake or the glacier or whatever they have, and then they have some sort of expense to go out and harvest it, right? The water. Let's say they get all of that for free, but it costs them generally about 25 cents for a bottle. They'll sell it to, you know, whoever for $1. So that's a 4x flip. That's the best case scenario. Then you take like Dasani or whoever makes water, Aquafina, I think that's water, or it's a wrapper, I'm not sure. But you take whoever makes that, they bottle it, they put the plastic label on it, they do marketing and everything, and then they sell for $4. That's another 4x. These people are making the money. Here to here, here to here, making money. Then you get it to the shelf, like let's say a retail store or whatever, and they try and sell it for $5. That's the 1.25 increase. And that's the end result. That's the one that is, you know, depends on a customer coming in. This last one depends on a customer coming in. These ones are pretty much guaranteed sales. you know, whoever in the middle that's manufacturing the bottles and whatever need the water. They need to keep it going, or else if they stop, they're not gonna be able to supply it and hand off for another 4x. So they need to keep going. These ones need to keep going as the water is increasing, or else it overflows or somebody else comes in or whatever. These ones are more guaranteed than the last little bit. And the last little bit has the worst ratio, not guaranteed. The water can be sitting on the shelf, but they already paid for it at 4x the price of the previous 4x. This is where most like endpoints get bankrupt. This is where it happens. It usually doesn't happen in the middle, and it usually doesn't happen at the source unless, you know, there's a big flood and all the water's gone. But this is where it is. This is where most people go bankrupt. This is where 99% of restaurants fail, because they have this, but their supply chain doesn't fail. I know up here in Canada we have Cisco, and there's another one that supplies like Tim Hortons and such. You don't want to be at the tail end of this. You want to be in the middle, or you want to be the direct selling of, you know, from here. You sell 4x to a customer from here. That's probably the best case, and that's where kind of all these online stores come into play. They got suppliers. They're coming direct, you know, selling direct from the supplier. They can get the best bang for the buck, that type of thing. So that's what I want to share about the best business ratio. Is usually you want a 2 to 4. If you're not getting a 2 to 4, you're probably not in the best business ratio, and it's not going to go well. You're going to be struggling, or you're going to have a 99% fail rate, or you're only going to make 3% profits, or whichever. But anyway, that's what you want to aim for. If you could find a business model that's like this, or if you find, you know, like a franchise that I talked about, where they make, you know, 4 times more than what it's worth, you want that. You want these, right? You don't want this. You don't want to be that tail end that gets 2.5 or 1.25. You don't want to be there. So that's the best business ratio. What are you risking? What is your reward? You always want it to be between 2 and 4. Anything higher is usually like some sort of fad or type of thing that's going on right now that's probably not going to be long term. So yeah, I can't think of any examples. I think like Beanie Babies or like Pokemon cards, those types of things that sometimes depend on the market, or sometimes are in, you know, season, or that type of thing. It's not sustainable. You'll have that, and then you won't have any sales for whatever. So 2 to 4, best business ratio. If any of this makes sense, I hope it does. Thanks, and talk soon.